Hello YouTube. This is BalorMage again, and I have done nearly a week of full juice MFing Crimson Temple. So this is going to be a video on the strategy that we've settled on, the Atlas tree that we've settled on, the Scarabs that we've settled on, why, and what your other options are. So behind us, you can see we're doing 80% Delirious maps solo now. It's a little bit crazy. We have made quite a lot of money. This character will probably hit level 100 tomorrow doing this all solo. No rotors, no anything. So it's been a very good strategy. We've made a lot of money. But we get questions continuously about what Scarabs we should be using and why I'm using certain things. And I think it's important to point out that I have made some decisions on the farming strategy that I'm doing right now that are based purely on I enjoy this content and want to have more of it in my map, not on what's the most profit per hour. So moving in the game, I will show you the things that I have done and what changes you should make if you want to be like the most efficient. All right, so this is my character, my dude, hanging around 61% of the way through level 99. So here's the trick. The most annoying part is that we have to roll all of our maps to have Beyond on them. Rolling your maps to have Beyond on them is an absolute pain. What I usually do is I use a dump tab just like this one. I put 50 or 60 maps in it at a time. I buy several thousand alks or bindings and scours, and then I sit there and I type Beyond into here, and then I just alk everything, pull out the ones that say Beyond, scour everything, alk everything, pull out the ones that say Beyond, scour everything, and do it over and over and over again. I also tend to roll over ones that look like this, that have incredibly small pack size and quantity. You don't necessarily have to. You can just have Beyond. I was just doing that for a while, but I try to roll for like at least above 70. You know, most of these are in the 70s to 80s. Some of them are a little bit low. These are low 70s. Those ones make me sad. That one I shouldn't be running. But that's how we prepare our maps. Then Harbinger specifically is something that I have put into my maps purely because I like Harbinger. Now, that means that I have used a Harbinger Scarab as well as a Harbinger Sextant, which we can use right here. These are still pretty good. Both of them are still pretty good. They still give pretty decent returns. They are not the best. So, mandatory compasses is going to be Beyond. Area contains Alva. Delirium reward bars fill 100% faster. I think those three are your mandatory sextant. This fourth one is a wild card. Hunted traders might be the very best, but also you could use an abyss one or a breach one as long as you spec into it on the tree, if that's the sort of content you like. The trick here really is that we're just trying to add the most amount of mobs to our map. I think Hunted Trader wins. I think if I was basing it purely on profit per hour, profit per map style, you know, min-maxing, all of these Harbinger compasses that I use, they would just all be Hunted Traders. Or possibly Abyss. Those would be very close and nearly impossible to tell which one is better. So, same deal over here. Elder Scarabs, mandatory. They do not have to be gilded. Any Elder Scarab is fine. They all add the same amount of mobs. However, I use gilded because all my other Scarabs are gilded and they just look prettier. I use Gilded Reliquary, Gilded Divination, and Gilded Harbinger. Again, Harbinger is something that I just like. That's why we're using it. You can swap that Scarab out for something else so long as it adds mobs to your map. Gilded Reliquary is the one I get the most questions about. There are always, hey, why are we using this? Why are we using this? You're never going to find a Mage Blood, except the problem is I found a Mage Blood and a Headhunter on the ground already. I find 5 or 6 Aegis Aurora shields a day, and you can just use that to judge, you know, how many other decent-ish value uniques that we find, as well as just even just tons of Sedemas. I'm just picking Sedemas up off the ground and valing them. So there's plenty of them, plenty of uniques, plenty of tabulars that turn into divines, those that pays for itself. Gilded divination is obvious. It is perfectly fine to start with a polished divination scarab whenever you're starting this strategy right at the beginning and you can't afford gildeds. The problem with gildeds is they don't feel like they pay off if you run 5 or 10 or 15 maps. They do not feel like they pay off. But the first time you find a Mage Blood card on the ground, that's 36 Exalted Orbs, and you're making 1.5 times the amount of those because we're running Gilded Divination Scarabs. So there's like a long gap between it paying off, but it's the highest return Scarab that we're currently using. So it is mandatory, but it is also perfectly fine to start with polished when you're poor. If you run polished until you know, make some money, which will probably only be a day or two, you'll be able to afford gilded, you should move up to gilded. And then Harbinger can be swapped for anything. That's really kind of a wild card scarab. I like Harbinger the best. Harbingers are just fun and I enjoy them. As you can see in our currency stash tab, we have made quite a bit here MFing. We do have 7 mirror shards, 118x, and a little over 10,000 chaos, plus just tons of other currency here. Like everything we have here is worth quite a bit. Like there's 9x of those, we've got another 2x of them, we've got 4x in the nulls, you know, everything here, tons of money. More of these woke sextants, another 5x of those. The exotic currency stuff is starting to fill up pretty good as well. This does make a ton of money. We also have 2 more Mage Blood cards for sale that we just haven't sold yet, as well as just some other stuff. Not important what that is. What's important is this stuff. Then we're gonna have a look at our Atlas tree. Now, we might actually have a look at this Atlas tree in the planner tool. Right. So this is the current tree that I am running with. Now I've made a few decisions. One, I wanted to level to 99, and then I wanted to level to 100. So I took off Wrath of the Cosmos. If you're after just making money, taking this node off your tree loses you money. I absolutely should be running it for money, but I decided I wanted a level 100 character, so we've taken it off. And then we have some areas where there's a little bit of wiggle room. Most of this tree is absolutely mandatory. So what I'm going to do is share with you guys the tree looking like this. This is your mandatory tree. These are 121 points. You cannot do without. As far as I am concerned, absolutely everything on this tree is a mandatory part of the tree. You have about 11 points to play with that you can do whatever you want with. Slightly less if you take Wrath of the Cosmos. Then it's 9 points, right? Going over the stuff, we could block slightly less, so there's a little bit we could get away with there. If you spec into breaches, you don't block breaches, but we blocked all of the stuff that we thought was trash. I don't like Sacred Groves, so I dropped it. Expedition is pretty bad when you're not spec'd into it. Breaches are pretty bad when you're not spec'd into it. I left Abyss because Abyss is brilliant. But even these travel nodes have been optimized. So Foul Flesh Merchants are usually really good. You'll find a lot of Alk and Ghost strats will use Foul Flesh Merchants. They're quite rewarding. They are not rewarding when we compare them to what we're doing right now. They're literally not worth a point. Quantity is, quantity is, quantity is. Then we've done all the travel we need to get to all of the Beyond wheels in the most efficient manner we can, because Beyond is the driving force behind this entire strategy. Then all the map effect modifiers, because again, those are super important. I've decided to run blue altars. I think blue altars are way safer, so we're going to take the blue altar node. If your build or you just want to be running reds, super easy change. You just put that in, and you take out this one and this one. We're in both parts of the tree, so it doesn't matter which one we do. I do think blue, way easier. Way easier. So, coming on down here, we do have our Harbinger nodes, as many Harbingers as we can get into the map. This is also still going to stay on your tree, even if you don't use Harbinger Scarabs and Harbinger Sextants. Just for use of our tree here, they're still incredibly powerful mods. They're still incredibly powerful for the Delirium reward, for that to go up quicker. It's also free headhunter buffs in a tight little group, which is very lovely. We have taken Valley of the Darkness. This is mandatory if you have a headhunter, and I would suggest not taking it if you don't have a headhunter. If you're still using Inspired Learnings or you're using a replica headhunter, leave Valley of the Darkness off. Put it on when you finish a real headhunter. You can absolutely start the strategy on just one Inspired Learning, upgrade into 2 Inspired Learnings, upgrade into a replica headhunter, and then sell the replica headhunter when you can afford to upgrade into a real one. We do not take Valley of the Darkness until you have a real full headhunter. Just not worth it. We have Singular Focus because we like picking up currency off the ground more than we like picking up 300 random maps. And we have Shaping the Valley, which is purely there because we get quantity, rarity, and pack size whenever we use Fortune Favors the Brave, so that's on every map. Coming up, we got some more shrine stuff to go with our added shrines. There's just tons of packs of monsters around the shrines. Big old groups of monsters. Always fantastic. We want more mobs. They're great. King Harbingers because they're more maps, and because also we needed to pick something to get into the quant here in the middle. Quant and rarity. Very nice. We took the entire quant wheel, and we took a bunch of Alva stuff. So this stuff is getting us Alva missions. As good as those are, we can't maintain them anyway, so that's not too important. What is important here is incursions in your map have a 33% chance for all monsters to be at least magic. This basically means that one Alva in every map will have magic mobs just everywhere. I use both charges of my blue sentinel inside these Alvas. They have really juiced up quant and really juiced up rarity, and they have tight packs of mobs that will always be in there. So both of my blue sentinel charges, every single map, get used on an Alva that has all the blues in it. That being said, if I do get to the third Alva and I do the third one, and it's also not full of blue mobs, which can happen, I will just use my sentinels anyway, because I still want to use them. Sentinels are still a lot of money. Coming down here, even these weird points here that are floating, even those are pretty good. This keystone we take because we quite often just accidentally build temples that are worth 100 chaos. Your corruption temples, your gem corruptions, and your normal double corruptions, always worth money. I don't pay attention to temples at all. If you've got a little bit quicker of a brain than I can, you could probably intentionally try and build one that's better. But I just upgrade every single time without checking and open random doors. Because I don't want to pay attention. Not necessarily a great strategy. You could probably squeeze a little bit more money out of just paying attention to that. But even doing that, I'm still over half my temples are good temples that get sold. That is still money. These are just incursion pack size, incursion pack size, incursion pack size. And then this one isn't pack size, so we didn't bother to get it. That is the important nodes on the entire tree, leaving us with a little bit of wiggle room. So again, this is also optional. It is good money, but optional. So I went with blocking a few extra things because I wanted to, purely just because I didn't like these things showing up in my map. That's not mandatory at all. I also went with blight nodes because I was blocking enough stuff that I was getting blight very regularly. I'm still on the fence about that. I don't know whether it's the right choice or not. However, what we do have for an option is this node here. We can come down there and grab that. That is % chance to generate extra delirium rewards on all of these travels. 8% chance to generate 3 additional reward types. And then we can also grab these 3 here. There's no point in taking the notable, but that'll give us a lot of extra rewards from Delirium when we're running them. That's a really good option. You could also spec a little bit into Breach. You could quite easily get that. You could quite easily get that. You could start running Breach Scarabs. That would also be fine. That will do quite well if you really enjoy Breaches. There's just not enough points to go into Legion, and also Crimson Temple is garbage for Legion, so we just don't want that. You could also spec quite a bit heavier into Abyss by going there, taking those nodes, and taking these nodes, but not the notable. The important part of Abyss is that it's one of the best places for XP and the best places for monsters, purely because we've got a ton of this. What do we got? Abyss in your map spawned 100% increased monsters, and then this node for Abyss in your map spawned 15% increased monsters, 15% increased monsters, and then over here 10% increased monsters, 10% increased monsters, 10% increased monsters, and an additional chance to spawn per 2 pack size. This is probably the best option, is taking that. But I personally hate Abysses. They make me go backwards, and it's annoying, and I'm okay with making slightly less money to just have my maps be fun. Any leftover points you've got, you can always get Eater of World pack size here. These floating 2 points, not important at all, but still worth getting if you have leftover points. The other thing you could do, and probably the last good option, is you could go into strong boxes. You do have the points. You could absolutely go into some strong boxes there. I don't think you get... No, you will not be able to get this top one, but that's okay. But you could spec fully into strong boxes as well, if you like that sort of stuff. There is technically enough points to spec into Essence, but I don't think in a strategy like this that Essence is worth it. So those are all of the options. This tree as it stands, with its minimal amount of points, the stuff that I am considering not optional, that's the one that we're going to share. That'll be in the description. You can add whichever mechanic you like from there. But super rewarding. I hope everybody who's doing it is having a fantastic time. So far, from all the people who have started doing this from my chat, we've had about 40 people saying they're getting very, very rich, and one unlucky, unfortunate person who did it for like 4 days and didn't see a single card of any kind, not even mirror shard cards or anything. And so it is still RNG based. We've just heavily stacked the RNG in our favor. It is very, very difficult to not turn a huge profit doing this. It is technically possible, but only for short periods of time. If you only do it for 1 day and you get a little unlucky, you can actually come out negative over the course of just 1 afternoon. But if you just stick to it and you're doing this strategy and you're doing the things I said, you will end up with just an absolute ton of money. Right, last thing, what Delirium orbs we use. It's actually more important, what Delirium orbs don't we use? And basically, we don't use anything that's not highlighted on this trade window. I am also going to link this trade here. Technically, the most rewarding things that you can use is skittering Delirium orbs. Unfortunately, the price of skittering Delirium orbs this league has moved to the point where I consider them group content only. I don't think it's worth running these solo anymore. The price is just outrageous. So what I've done is just looked for anything that gives me enough reward to at least pay for its own Deliriums, and then give me like at least a little bit of profit. Basically, all of these Delirium orbs either pay for themselves or they give you 10 or 15% more than what they were worth. So we've got Essence, Foreboding, Blight, Divination card, Thaumaturge, or Fine. Those all pay for themselves once you're doing your maps. So I've just got a search up that shows you all of them. When I say they pay for themselves, I do mean even when you scroll down and you buy Fine Delirium orbs at 6x, at 6 to 1x, that still does pay for itself. You don't make a lot on these. You probably only make, if you use 6 fine Delirium orbs, you're probably only making 1.1 to 1.2x on average, right? But it's the same when you scroll all the way up here. If you use 9 essence orbs, you're probably only going to make 1.2 to 1.3 exalts, right? None of these are insane. None of them are giving crazy returns, but they are all paying for themselves. So those are the ones that I suggest. I will also link this trade in the description. Last question. The only thing that I missed from my cue card, whoops, was how much Delirium do you have to run to make this worth it? And the answer is you just have to be running at least 20%. As soon as your character can run 20% Delirious and you roll 4 beyond, this becomes profitable. When you are not running Delirious maps, the amount of investment we've put into this is a negative, not a positive. We don't want to be doing non-Delirious maps, but as long as you can do at least 20, you're making money. The more you can put on, the better. The more your build can handle, the better, but you can always start off smaller and work your way up. And then the last question was, what was the minimum amount of investment in an MF character to make this strategy viable? And I have an unfortunate answer. I think at this point in the league, if you don't already have the MF character built, you should not build it until you already have a headhunter. The reason isn't because you can't do this strategy. You absolutely can. You can absolutely start this with an inspired learning and that's it. And probably only about 15x worth of gear on your character at most. The problem is at that level of investment, there are 40 other Atlas strategies that will make you more money easier. This strategy has a lot of trading involved, a lot of bulk trading involved. You've got to buy hundreds of Delirium orbs. You've got to buy thousands of alchemy orbs. You've got to buy thousands of scours. It really does pay off and it really is worth it, but only right at the high end. You could easily be going to farm Delirium maps or essences or just expeditions, harvests, really nearly anything else. If you're at the point where you can't really afford to do this strategy at its maximum level, you should be doing something else until you can afford to do this at, I would say, at least 60% Delirious in tier 15 or 16 maps. And yeah, that's it. That's the end of it. This has been a fantastic strategy that I have super enjoyed. I will probably move on from it when I reach level 100, just because I kind of liked the idea of going to level 100 while doing full MF. But that is all, and I will see everybody tomorrow or another day. Who knows? Goodbye.